to BookMob episode 86. Today I'm going to be talking about a new book, a great new book by the writer Joe Nesbo, Wolf Hour. Now, despite the fact that he sold 60 million books, I only really started knowing or reading Joe Nesbo in 2023 when I read his book Blood Ties. This is only my second Nesbo book, but I'm actually currently reading my third Nesbo book, which is Macbeth, which is just a brilliant retelling of, and I'm almost finished, of William Shakespeare's famous play, Macbeth. It's a fantastic take. It's set in the 70s in London. And anyway, we're not talking about that book. We're talking about Wolf Hour. Now, the topic of revenge comes up a lot in thrillers and action books, where someone who has been hard done by, generally by the police or organisations, and in this book we have a unknown character who, throughout the entire novel, you really don't know who he is. And again, like any good thriller or any good murder mystery or detective story, sometimes you as the reader are spending a lot of time guessing who is the person that is doing the killing, which is a fun side effect of reading thriller books. However, Joe Nesbo in this book, he kind of, there's a couple of great narrative scenes where the dialogue I'm not saying that his dialogue is like something that would be written in the 30s or 40s or 50s. It's got this great sort of Raymond Chandler type appeal. There's this great scene where the main protagonist, Detective Bob Oz, which is a very funny name, and he's talking to a taxidermist, and there's this whole sort of chapter where there's just this really sly, really simple but sort of acidic dialogue between these two men, and both who have had similar backgrounds in life, but one's a cop and one's a taxidermist, and it's not something that you would just off the top of your head think would be interesting, but it's vital in this book. The narrative structure that Joe Nesbo uses is a combination of action and literature. He really does write so well. His characters are very thick, very understanding, and you do appeal, your mind appeals to the outcomes of your character's history, their demise, where they end up, who they end up with, if they die, if they live. And if you want a good book for the December break, and you're needing to get someone a present, someone that you know who enjoys reading but is not big into it, but you want to give them something that's going to keep them captivated for a couple of days, well then Wolf Hour is your book. Now, Joe Nesbo has written, he's famous for his Harry Hole thrillers, which I actually haven't read any of the Harry Hole books, but I think I'm going to make 2026 the time to go through from book 1 to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Well, I mean, he's got up until Killing Moon. So you've got The Bat, number 1, and you've got Killing Moon at number 13 or something. And I think that's going to give me something to do for 2026. But he's standalone books, and he has quite a number of standalone books. And Blood Ties, the one I mentioned earlier, was the first book I read of Joe Nesbo back in 2023. And that was a really, really engaging, captivating read. And again, if you're looking for something just to pass the time in an enjoyable and entertaining manner for a book, then Joe Nesbo is your writer. And he's written 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. He's written 11 standalone thrillers. And so it's fascinating that when you find someone that perhaps maybe 10 years ago I wouldn't have given the time of day to read, who suddenly you find, his style, his writing, it's just so efficient, it's funny. The guy, the sort of the humor he carries throughout the book is just fantastic. And he writes from a European perspective, but you can tell that he's been influenced probably as a child, and he's looking at American culture through the TV, not by living it. And then he's taking his own European culture and then spitting out this sort of Euro-American type noir, which is, to me, fascinating because you can... And again, I must admit, I haven't read the original, and obviously in the original language, which is I think is Norwegian. So I don't know what is lost and what is found in the translation in his novels. Suffice to say that when you read Joe Nesbo in English, if the translation helps, it does create a wonderful atmospheric narrative that is kind of different and strange and sits apart from so many other thrillers, so many other detective tales that are a dime a dozen in your bookshops. So again, if you're looking for something to brighten up someone's Christmas period, Joe Nesbo, Wolf Hour, bloody good read, so well done, fascinating story, and I highly recommend it. On my Goodreads review, I gave it 5 stars. Basically, I said, a serial killer with a revenge as his motive. Detective Bob Oz chases the elusive and determined killer. A man seeking revenge even though he kills with violence. You, as the reader, may be morally challenged by the killer's victims. So the killer is going after good, bad people who did something untoward. I won't go into it because I don't want to give any spoilers, because it's a great story and it's great to read it through. You can finish this book in 4 or 5 days. How long did it take me, actually? Yeah, it took me 3 days, and but that's because I was reading with the intent to do a review and finish it. But it was an pleasurable, entertaining, engaging read. So I highly recommend Joe Nesbo, Wolf Hour. And as I said, I'm currently reading Joe Nesbo, Macbeth, which is just brilliant. Great read, fantastic. And what's coming up next? I've got Robert Louis Stevenson, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. This is part of my 100 great novels that I've read. This is going to be on that video, which I hope to do before the start of 2026. And finally, I'll probably read Grantley Keyes's Mary Penfold's History. Like I said, I've read many of Grantley Keyes's work, and he's a great Australian historian. He really supplies the reader with an enjoyable, pleasurable historical narrative, and it's one of his books, you can't put them down because they're so fascinating. And that's it for BookMob for not for 1986. That's it for episode 86. And like I said, I'm aiming to do my 100 novels episode before the end of 2025. So hopefully I'll get that done. Anyway, have a good week. And remember, keep buying books, keep reading books, swap books, keep reading.